What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here today with some fantasy football sleepers. These are guys that you're going to be able to get in those double-digit rounds. They're going to be able to help you win your fantasy football championship, who have that crazy upside that you can get basically for free in your fantasy drafts. I'm going to be giving you guys 3 guys today to go after. So if you guys are new to the channel, though, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. Let me know who's a sleeper you guys are targeting or what you think of the sleepers in this video. All right. Also, mock draft dropping, if it hasn't already, mock drafts every Monday. It can be dropping running back rankings, wide receiver rankings later this week. So let's dive into our first sleeper. It is Jaden Higgins. He's currently going 122 overall, the wide receiver 54. And let's talk about why I think Higgins can be a successful pick for fantasy football. So he went with the second pick in the second round of the NFL draft to the Houston Texans. Tank Dell out for the year. Stephon Diggs left in free agency. Obviously, they have Nico Collins, but that wide receiver 2 spot is basically up for grabs. I think Jaden Higgins is going to go out there and grab the job. He was 6'4", 214, and ran a 4.47 at the combine. That's a great speed score. As you can see, 94th percentile when you factor in his height and weight. But another thing that I really like about him is that he was extremely productive his last 2 years in college. We see this last year, 87 for 1,183 yards, 9 receiving touchdowns. The year before, almost 1,000 yards as well, and only 84 targets. So he's been really successful on the field in college. He's got great athleticism scores. Let's see where they have him in the class. Number 3 overall wide receiver based off of his athleticism. He's got the production profile to boot, and he goes into a situation with C.J. Stroud and that wide receiver depth chart where he has an opportunity to earn a lot of targets as a rookie, and you get him for such a low value. I think there's really a very little risk with going with a guy like Jaden Higgins, and we've seen rookie wide receivers produce younger and younger as they get to the league. And obviously the Houston Texans believe in him. They went out and spent an early day 2 pick on him. But yeah, I think there's a lot of upside to where you can get Jaden Higgins in drafts right now. I have no problem taking him a round or 2 early, even wide receiver 54. I think he can easily outdo that. And he's the guy who has the wide upside to be, easily a top 36 wide receiver, I think. But even I think top 24 is in the range of outcomes, not necessarily what I would project, but that's in, if he goes out there and gets 110 targets this year, Bucks has 8 touchdowns, he could easily be a top 24 wide receiver. And yeah, being second to Nico Collins in the coverage that he's drawing is definitely going to help him as the year goes on. So let's dive into our number 2 sleeper. It's another wide receiver. It is Trey Harris for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's currently going 131 overall in ADP, wide receiver 59. And let's talk about why I think Trey Harris has a chance to be so good. One thing with him, we'll touch on some of his speed scores and things. A little bit of an older wide receiver, but 6'2", 205. Goes into a lineup where we've got Ladd McConkey and not a whole lot of other pass catchers on that roster that are very relevant. So I think Trey Harris is going to go in there and be that number 2 on that roster, similar to what we've just talked about Jaden Higgins. The 40 time isn't nearly as good, but he was an elite producer in the SEC this last year. We saw him only suit up for 8 games, but averaging 128 yards per game is amazing. And to be able to do that in an 8-game sample size even is still awesome. And if we look back at his last 2 years as well, almost 1,000 yards at Louisiana Tech as a sophomore, 10 touchdowns, and then his 2023 year, another year in the SEC, almost 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he's always been good in the touchdown department, dominated his last year in college, and another guy who goes into a situation where he is very likely to be the number 2 pass catcher for a talented quarterback in Justin Herbert, who could easily throw for 4,000 plus yards, and a guy who can go in there and compete right away and potentially start at that number 2 spot and have the talent to do it. I'm not saying he goes out there and outproduces Ladd McConkey, but for the draft price that you can get on Trey Harris and the upside that he possesses with such a talented player throwing him the ball in Justin Herbert, there's a lot of things that add up, and I like guys that produce and that go into situations where there's not very much target competition around them and they have a talented guy throwing them the ball. Trey Harris checks all of those boxes for me, and that wide receiver 59 draft price, there's very little risk. Okay, let's dive into our last guy on this list, Marshawn Lloyd. He is way down the list on the ADP. You'll see on here 188. But let's dive into why I think Marshawn Lloyd is a talented football player and worthy of being drafted. Running back 59 right now. Okay, so the story of Marshawn Lloyd was drafted in the 3rd round by the Green Bay Packers 2 seasons ago. His rookie year dealt with a lot of injuries, only had 6 carries, barely played at all. But as you can see, 5'9", 220 pounds. He's built like a bowling ball, but he ran a 4.46 at the combine, which is an exceptional speed score. As you can see, 93rd percentile. Bench press was pretty good too. I don't usually look at numbers like that a whole ton, but very good workout numbers there. And then let's go down here, skip a lot of these numbers because, like I said, there was so little volume that he had. But we can see the rushing production, and really I've got to pull it up on this site here just because it shows the yards per carry, which is really where we see Marshawn Lloyd thrive and really be an outlier for fantasy football. But yeah, he's got a really good weight combined with how fast he is. That's an elite score. And then you add in that he had averaged 7.1 yards a carry his last year at USC, 17.8 yards per reception. He's a talented player in the passing game. You can see 13.3 over 34 catches for his entire career. And then the thing that really gets me excited about him, you might be saying, Josh Jacobs had over 300 carries last year. How is he going to get into the fray as a player? With the draft capital invested in him, and the way that Matt LaFleur typically runs his offense, they usually have more than one back involved. I think Marshawn Lloyd could easily get to that 10 to 12 touch per game mark. I think Josh Jacobs is going to have less of a workload this year to try to keep him fresher as the season goes on. And Marshawn Lloyd is a talented enough player to give him, those breaks. And if you combine that with the upside of if something happens to Josh Jacobs, all of a sudden Marshawn Lloyd is, a top 12 running back upside. And I think he's going to be a flexible player even when you talk about the weeks where Josh Jacobs is healthy. And if anything happens, you have an excellent insurance policy that will become a lot more valuable. But I just think when you turn on the tape, he's extremely talented. This is a team that usually uses a 2-back system. We've seen Matt LaFleur do that for years. The only time he hasn't was this last season. But Marshawn Lloyd's talent, his speed, his pass-catching profile, all of those things are smashes. And it's worthy of taking the risk when you're talking about RB59. Some of the guys going around him, it's like, would you rather have Marshawn Lloyd or Anthony Richardson? That decision's very easy for me. We're talking about the quarterback 30 at that point. But yeah, those are my sleepers. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. I will respond as always. Check out the mock drafts. And if you have any video requests, anything you're looking for, just comment it down below, like I said. And like I said earlier, running back rankings, wide receiver rankings coming out later this week. So stick around for that. All right. Thank you guys for watching.